Ladies and gentlemen, to begin tonight's program, please stand if you're able for our national anthem, sung by Chelsea Leaf.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Please be seated for our invocation led by Space Camp Hall of Fame member Burke Hare.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we gather tonight in great joy to celebrate and honor the Space Camp Hall of Fame class of 2025. We ask you to bless us tonight. It may be a source of joy, inspiration, and fellowship. Help us to be mindful of where we have come, recalling those who helped us on our journey and our call to inspire the next generations of educators, scientists, astronauts, and space professionals who will answer your call to teach, discover, explore, and defend. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Now please welcome to the stage our MC for the evening, Astro Alexandra.
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here tonight. Good evening and welcome to the 2025 Space Camp Hall of Fame ceremony. My name is Alexandra Doughton, also known as Astro Alexandra. I got my start working at NASA when I was actually a sophomore in college and then followed it up at the United States Space Force. And in doing so, I earned an amazing foundation, and now I use the incredible power of social media to educate millions and millions of people about science and astronomy and about the wonders of the cosmos. So I'm so incredibly humbled and excited to be here in front of so many pioneers of this industry. So thank you all so much for being here tonight to celebrate the induction of 5 exceptional individuals into the Space Camp Hall of Fame. These 5 remarkable people represent both our Space Camp alumni family of more than 1 million, as well as those whose passion and commitment make Space Camp possible. This evening also celebrates the Rocket Center's Year of Aviation and the 35th birthday of the Aviation Challenge, a program that has inspired countless pilots and aviation enthusiasts to pursue their dreams. We have many friends in the audience tonight, including members of the Space Camp Alumni Association Board. Thank you for supporting the work of the Rocket Center and Space Camp and for continuing to be such an important part of our family. We have with us several members of the Alabama Space Science Exhibit Commission and the U.S. Space and Rocket Center Education Foundation Board. Please wave if that's you. I'm going to be calling out a lot of you tonight. And a big congratulations to Dr. Gretchen Green, Foundation Board Secretary, on her recent flight to space aboard Blue Origin's New Shepard 32 mission, which is a very, very exciting experience. Congratulations, Dr. Green. We are excited to have several Space Camp Hall of Fame members here tonight as well. Some of you were in your blue jackets, but I'm seeing some of them missing. Please stand as I call your name and then remain standing. Please hold your applause until everyone's name has been called. Dan Oates, Penny Pettigrew, Marlon Mackey, Vincent Vazzo, Joshua Whitfield, Dr. Danny Hackus, Burke Hare, Robert Hoot Gibson, Scott Holcomb, Dr. Michelle Christensen, John Hecker, Dr. Tara Sweeney, Peter Marquez, Jared Isaacman, Tim Bailey, Dr. Cindy Mahler, and Eileen Velez Vega. Please give a round of applause to these amazing Hall of Famers. It's wonderful to have so many members of the Hall of Fame here to celebrate this year's class. You can be seated now. Thank you for standing. I would now like to welcome Peter Marquez, Head of Space Policy for Amazon Web Services, our Alumni Weekend presenting sponsor.
I love when they use 20-year-old headshots. It's awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Brenda and other Brenda. You can decide which one's the other Brenda. And Pat and Emily, thank you all for everything you all do to put this on. Truly appreciate it. And thank you from AWS for letting us sponsor this again. And I'm grateful that my schedule allows me to be here. I spend a lot of time in airplanes. Most of my time in the office is either at the Frankfurt Airport Lounge or at the Narita Lounge. And I spend a lot of time with people from around the world. And my view of the world is influenced by my background is in national security. So my bias is to look at the world from a lens of geopolitics. And from this viewpoint, I see moments, generations, events that have defined those generations and provided clarity of purpose for those people in those generations. Now, for example, in World War II, the planet witnessed the indomitable spirit of those who refused to surrender. The fate of free nations hung in the balance, and the resolve of women and men were tested to their very limits. It was a call to arms against the forces of oppression and tyranny. It was a time when the world witnessed the true power of human ingenuity and determination as our scientists and engineers pushed the boundaries of what was impossible. Now, from the development of radar technology, mathematicians working to break the Enigma code, the splitting of the atom, and duct tape, yes, duct tape, our technical achievements of that era were nothing short of remarkable. Again, duct tape. It was a testament to the fact that when we put our minds to a task, when we refuse to accept anything less than our best, we can achieve the seemingly impossible. Again, duct tape. Now, the results of that era surround us in this room right now. They hang above us, echoes of what we are capable of and what we can do when the very best of us do our very best. They serve as a reminder in more ways than one that complacency is the enemy of progress, that we must never rest on our laurels. For the moment we do, we risk losing the very essence of what makes us great. The challenge before us is clear. We have to stoke the ember that still exists in us, that same spirit of relentless pursuit, to reacquaint ourselves with the notion that we are never finished. Never. The entrance to the Space Camp Operations Center reads, "Through these doors walk the world's future scientists, astronauts, and engineers." I'd like to add one more: leaders. Today, we celebrate a group of leaders and induct them into the Space Camp Hall of Fame, people who have pushed themselves in their field, examples of who we are when we are our very best. America and its allies, leaders of freedom and human rights, are facing challengers in economic, scientific, and technological fields. Our national security leadership in the Pacific and Europe have made it very clear about the threats we face. We are being called upon to stand up and lead. Everyone here has a role. So I'll end with this, a call to all of you and to our newest sisters and brothers in the Hall of Fame. Tonight is about you. You deserve it. You worked hard. But tomorrow is about them. It's our duty to guide them, to push the next generation to be tomorrow's leaders, to always believe in themselves, to always believe in something greater, to disregard the impossible, and to always be something more. So thank you for giving me this opportunity. Pat, you escaped unscathed this time. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you, Peter, for your continued support. And now, please welcome Hall of Fame member Josh Whitfield. He and his wife, Carrie, are sponsors for this evening's dinner.
Well, good evening. I know some of my Hall of Fame members are now terrified, not expecting me to speak. So I will be brief and be gone for their benefit and all of yours, so we can honor the 5 excellent individuals that we need to honor tonight. But as I stand before you tonight, under the magnificent Saturn V rocket, surrounded by the passion of elegance that defines the very best about the U.S. Space and Rocket Center, I'm overwhelmed after not being here for 4 years. Coming back after so long always fills me with a profound sense of gratitude and reverence for this very special place. Space Camp is not simply a program. It's not merely a camp. And the Rocket Center is not just another museum or place to visit. This place and what it stands for are a symbol of boundless possibility. It's a cherished national treasure. And indeed, I believe, as my previous speaker and Hall of Fame member just said, it is a global beacon for the very best attributes of humanity and society. I can think of few other places where children from all walks of life and all corners of the world are invited not just to dream, but are empowered to reach out and touch their dreams, where they are encouraged to look up into the heavens and not just wonder or imagine about a better future, but here they can make their first steps toward building a better future. In this place, my friends, an unshakable magic resonates. It offers a hopeful promise in an increasingly uncertain world. Space Camp stands as a beacon that calls to the dreamers, those who would dare to explore, those who have the audacity to believe in something bigger and better than themselves, those of us who are alumni, who have been fortunate enough to be touched by this place's glow. We bear a noble duty to keep this beacon shining bright, ensuring that no matter where you come from, that this place will accept you, inspire you, motivate you, and most importantly, to apply all of that to the next generation. This place helps quench our thirst for exploration, to satisfy our innate curiosity about the universe we live in, and to ensure that in our lifetime, humanity walks forward. And just like in the 20th century when Neil Armstrong put the first human footprint on the moon, inspiring all mankind, that in our lifetime, we will see the first human footprint put on Mars, inspiring mankind once more to shed the shackles of pessimism and stagnicity, narrow-mindedness and division, ego and selfishness, reminding all of us who inhabit this precious pale blue dot we live on to work toward new discoveries and achievements, new innovations, tolerance and selflessness, quite literally working towards a better tomorrow for all of us. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight my heart is full, not only because of this celebration where we are inducting 5 very deserving new members into the Space Camp Hall of Fame, all of them who embody the very ideals this place stands for, but because I get to share tonight with 15 people who have never been here before. My professional colleagues from the California State Legislature, along with their partners, have joined me tonight, my friends and colleagues. And I could not be more thrilled that this class of inductees is who they get to see honored. These educators, service members, scientists, and leaders who represent the very best of what makes this place so very special. I cannot think of a better education on why this place matters more now than ever than the stories and achievements you will hear tonight about the class of 2025. I'm very pleased tonight to be joined by my former boss and the newly elected minority leader of the California State Assembly, the Honorable Heath Flora, and my current boss, the Honorable Juan Alanis, both who are like brothers to me. They were a firefighter and a law enforcement officer respectively by trade before, like me, they gave up honest work for politics. Now I kid, of course, kind of. But in all seriousness, having my colleagues and friends here tonight is special. Not just to show them this place that I revere so much and talk so often about, but tonight my wife Carrie and I are celebrating our 10th wedding anniversary. And just like so many others of you in this room, and so many others we know, our journey together began right here at Space Camp. We owe this place so very much. You can cheer for Space Camp, I'm always for that. And our love for this place truly is so very full. Our respect for the alumni community, who without hesitation rallied to give so much help to save Space Camp during the pandemic, is so profoundly high. And we knew we wanted on this night, on our 10th anniversary, to give back to this place as a thank you and to pay back just a little bit of what this place has done for us both. In keeping with the values that this place has instilled into us, it fills me and my wife with immense joy to announce that starting in 2026, we will partner with the Education Foundation to offer scholarships for children of fallen service members and first responders. We wish to open the doors of Space Camp to these young people who, after losing someone so important in their lives, to the line of duty and to the service of others, that my brothers Juan and Heath, and so many of my military brothers and sisters in this room know, what that sacrifice means and how much it would mean to those children to find renewed purpose and motivation to pursue their dreams through this sacred institution. As alumni, together, we must all carry the torch of Space Camp's legacy wherever we go. And like those who came before us, we must ensure that this place thrives for the next generation and the generation after that. And we must instill into the next generation the same love and reverence that we carry on for this place always. Let us all, alumni, Hall of Fame members, staff members, and newcomers, continue to illuminate the path for those who dare to dream, ensuring the light of discovery and exploration never fades from this sacred place. Thank you, and congratulations to the class of 2025.
If I talked to you before this, I promised I would crack a few jokes, but I'm hearing the most beautiful speeches, and I just can't do it. Maybe I will. We'll see. We have a really fun panel coming up. So thank you so much to Josh and Carrie for your generous support and for being a part of this amazing family. It is now my pleasure to welcome three friends of the U.S. Space and Rocket Center and rock star aviators in their own right, Hoot Gibson, Peggy Lee Wright, and Duke Tucker. If you can make your way up to the stage. I'll introduce them as they make their way up here. Hoot is a retired U.S. Navy captain and the veteran of 5 space shuttle missions. He's the recipient of many honors, awards, and decorations, including the DoD Distinguished Service Medal, the Distinguished Flying Cross, and he's a member of the Astronaut Hall of Fame. Peggy Lee is an aviator, leader, and business innovator who is a former U.S. Army UH-60 Black Hawk pilot. She's the founder of the company You Keep, a woman-owned, veteran-owned small business that specializes in leadership development, personal branding, business growth, and program management. Duke is the vice president of business development for Akima and is a 20 veteran of U.S. Marine Corps, where he flew AH-1 Cobras. He was also a Marine One presidential helicopter pilot and served as operations officer, orchestrating support for 500 presidential events. Please give it up to our panelists now. And I'll make my way over. Okay, we have some fun questions. I'm excited. So first of all, for all of you, from presidential flights to space missions and combat zones, each of you has seen the sky from a unique vantage point. What drew you to aviation in the first place? You first.
I'm first?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Well, I guess I was carrying on a legacy of Mom and Dad. Mom and Dad were both pilots, which is how they met. And so I grew up in aviation. I have always been fascinated by flying. It was model airplanes when I was a kid. And my dad is the one who taught me how to fly, and I've been very fond of saying if I have done well as an aviator, it's because my dad was my instructor. So I was following in Mom and Dad's footsteps, and I've never looked back. It has just been a wonderful, exciting career for me, and all because of Mom and Dad.
I love that. That's good. Okay.
Thank you.
I come from a long line of military service member family, so it was no surprise when I joined the United States Army, but aviation, the reason I joined aviation is, to be perfectly frank and completely open kimono with the audience, is because it's freaking cool. I mean, if you're going to be in the military, why not fly?
That's true.
Yes, it is. And so for me, it was go big or go home, and I had no intentions of going home. So I took myself to Enterprise, Alabama, to rotary wing training, and the rest is history. So aviation has been something that not only was as cool as I thought it would be, but taught me a lot about life and all the other things as well. So.
All right, so I always knew I wanted to serve. I was the Navy brat, the son of a 25-year career Navy sailor, so I knew I was going to serve. But as a child of the 80s, there was this not real well-known movie. You might have heard of it. It flew under the radar, called Top Gun, released in 1986, and that created a generation of guys and girls like me, guys like me, that wanted to fly. So I went in the Marine Corps, knew I wanted to be part of that combined Marine Air Ground Task Force, and my calling eventually through months and months of training was to go into aviation. And like the others, I'm glad I never looked back.
That's amazing. That's really interesting to hear how all of you got into this.
You know, and the Navy canceled a lot of recruiting dollars because of the movie Top Gun. They just didn't need to spend all the money after that movie came out.
That's amazing. So you've flown 5 space shuttle missions over 14,000 flight hours. Which flight moment stands out most vividly, and what made it unforgettable from either a technical or human perspective?
Yes.
Perfect.
Well, you know, I would get the question all the time, what's the best part about a space flight? Is it the launch, the acceleration, the dynamics of it? Is it being in orbit, the weightlessness, and being able to fly everywhere you go, or the re-entry and landing? There are so many moments, it's kind of hard to pick out one. I'll tell you one, though, that does stick in my mind. We would get assigned to a mission 12 months before launch date. We would train together as a crew, and by the way, when you trained with a crew like that for 12 months, those 5 or 6 people are going to be precious to you the rest of your life, and they are certainly for me. So you work together in training, and then you launch and you fly the mission, and it was a solid year of training, and then there are a lot of challenges on every space flight that you fly because mission control has no control whatsoever. It's all done by the crew on board. And when we would form up as a crew, I'd say to my brand new crew, you guys and gals, we are going to experience something spectacular, but we are going to live or die depending on whether we execute this properly. And that's the way it is with aviation everywhere we go. But you'd come back in, re-entry was exciting, you'd touch down, and on landing you were under heavy braking to get that gigantic moose stopped in the course of the runway. Because we touched down at 230 miles an hour in a 200,000-pound vehicle with generally four wheels and brakes to get that thing stopped. So you're under heavy deceleration, and right at the end when you came to a dead stop, the nose gear was compressed because of the deceleration. It would make this little bobble when you came to a dead stop. And I'll never forget that moment. And I would look around at the rest of my crew, and I didn't say a word. I just thought to myself, wow, you guys, we did it. I'll never forget that moment.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. So Duke, as a Marine One pilot, you flew the president around the world. How did flying white tops differ from combat or training missions, and what did you learn about leadership under pressure from that role?
How did flying the president differ from combat? There's a lot of ways. Let's start with location. Hopefully. Right? Never flew him in Iraq. Spent a lot of time over there, though. Uniform, a little bit different. I would say that although we flew in a somewhat dress uniform with the president, it was much more comfortable than what we flew in combat. Customer, a little bit different, while both missions ridiculously important. Definitely a different customer. But probably the biggest difference, much like the space program, is that anything we did in a white top, you were under public scrutiny no matter where you were and what you were doing. Cameras were everywhere. We are humble Marines, and for all the Marines in here, you know that is not true. But we tried to be humble. But we had to very much be aware of our surroundings and how we acted while we were in the uniform around the helicopters, and how we could impact the view of the presidency. So there were some certainly big differences there. But I would say probably one of the best lessons I learned, and I'm glad we learned this, I'm glad I learned this while I was doing the presidential thing before I went into combat, was the fact that you never know everything. And you have to rely on the resources you have available to you to help inform your decisions. Much like Mission Control may not have had control, still a great resource to be able to reach back to. So I learned, whether it was the Secret Service or the FBI or the White House Communication Agency or a tremendous set of folks that supported us in a weather office, I learned that if I needed to lead a mission, needed all those resources available to me, and I needed to know how to go and get that information. So when we go into combat, I was used to that. Whether I had to talk to our intel folks or our friendly forces folks or the folks that are running the battle space, I knew that I don't know everything, so I had to be able to find those resources. And then I think probably the most important thing out of all that was being able to then make a decision based on everything you learned and then be comfortable with it, because you made the best decision you could with the information you had available to you. And I'm glad I had that experience flying around DC, because then when I got into combat, it just became second nature to be comfortable with that.
Thank you so much. Peggy Lee, you are deeply involved in mentoring the next generation through cyber and engineering education. What do young leaders need most from our generation of aviators and professionals?
So if I'm thinking about future leaders and what we as leaders and everyone in the audience brings to the table, I think we need to show up for them. I think we need to speak up for them. And then I think we need to hush up and listen to them. If there's one thing that I've discovered is this next generation of leaders, they know more about coding something that I didn't even know could be coded. They know more about reverse engineering some piece of high tech while my husband and I are still trying to figure out how to work our new remote for our television. So we are in good hands. This next generation is smart. They're scary smart. So they have, it's true. So they have the knowledge to do exactly what needs to be done. I think that we as leaders, what we can teach them is how to translate that knowledge. And what I mean by that is we need to teach them how to take that knowledge and use it with integrity, ethics, how to make sure that what they know is transferable to others. Because the knowledge that this next generation is bringing, it is going to serve them very well. What we need to do as leaders is ensure that they know how to serve others. Because in the same way that Hoot and Duke have talked about the people to their left and the right and the mission and the things that have been important to them and the people, that's what we can do for the next generation of leaders. So as aviators, if we can do that and we do our job right in bringing them up, they're not only going to fly farther than we do, but I have a feeling they're going to also fly smarter than we did. So I applaud them and I wish them the best of luck.
Well, kind of on that topic, I'm curious if there's a piece of advice that you guys got early in your flying career that has stuck with you throughout your life.
Oh, gee, there are so many. There are so many, but she touched on it already, and that is, and he touched on it already as well, making sure you have made yourself available of every little bit of information that you can possibly get, and listen to everybody's input. Take inputs. I'll have to tell you, when I was selected to be chief astronaut, my first thought was, wow, what a tremendous honor this is. my second thought was, holy smokes, I don't think I'm smart enough. I don't have all the answers. And I said, okay, I have got to get my astronauts to help me. I've got to get my branch chiefs to help me. And so whenever something would come up, I would say, okay, what do all of you think about this? And I would get inputs from everybody before I would make the decision. I'm going to make the decision as the leader, but I want to hear everybody's input, and that's called synergy, and that really works. So that's my advice.
So Duke is going to like this one. So the best information, the best piece of advice I ever got, it came so early in my aviation career. It was actually at flight school. So if you're not familiar with the terminology, I was taking a check ride. A check ride is basically a test to test basically your knowledge in the cockpit and how great of a pilot you are. And I didn't do that great. And I was so bummed. Like, I was having a pity party about it. I mean, I was wallowing in it. And I was starting to question, am I good enough? Should I be pursuing this? You know, what did I do wrong? And I called a mentor who had already been in aviation for about 10 years. And he said 3 words to me that are actually, I think it comes from the Marine Corps. And he said to me, embrace the suck. And I had no clue what that meant at the time. I just knew that he was not supporting me in the way that I needed him to by joining me in the pity party. But I understood what he was trying to say, because what he said to me was, you don't like how you feel right now, and embrace that feeling, because you never want to take another check ride where you feel like it sucked. So what do you need to do in order to improve? And so I studied more, asked for more flight time. I was flying around my little apartment, like pretending to fly the helicopter and emergency procedures and all the things. And I crushed the next check ride. But what I did with those 3 words, embrace the suck, was I've really done that with all aspects of any challenge that comes my way. Instead of sitting there and going, I can't believe this is happening, I'll put my arms around the challenge and embrace it and say, you know, I'm going to crush you because you're not going to crush me. And on the other side of this, I'm not just going to be a better pilot, a better leader, a better wife, a better parent, but I'll be a better person, and I'll understand how to do things differently. And my kids, I've got my oldest here tonight along with my husband. I have said embrace the suck to my 4 kids so many times, to the point that they roll their eyes. And right now, he's even looking at me going, I can't believe she's telling this story. But it really has been a mantra, and I hate to give credit to the Marine Corps, but I'm going to do it, that has really stayed with me and helped me in all facets, not just aviation, but life. So embrace the suck, y'all.
All right, mine is a bit of a metaphor. So the great piece of advice was, when you're on alert, have your flight suit ready. And I say that because I was on alert, in the shower, with a towel and shower shoes. And we had an alarm go off that meant you had to run to your helicopter. And you had about 3 minutes to where that helicopter had to be up, running, all the radios on, ready to go, because something is going down. So I got out of the shower, reached for my flight suit, wasn't there, grabbed the only thing available to me, one little white Marine Corps issued towel. I had no choice but to go. So I ended up flying the next 3 hours out of DC in February in a Black Hawk, pretty nice Black Hawk, in the front seat with a towel draped over my lap. And when the crew chief realized that that's what I was flying with, he very graciously took off his green t-shirt and shoved it up through a little map hole, so I had to put at least a green t-shirt on. We landed from that flight. The rest of the guys figured out what had happened, and so there was my flight suit with a little ribbon around it waiting right for me when I landed. So I suppose the metaphor is this: you better be ready for anything that can get thrown at you, right? Prepare, train, study, know what your role and your mission are, and if the bell goes off, you better be ready to run.
I told you guys we'd have fun tonight. This is for all of you. What advice would you give to someone at space camp today? who wants to fly, lead, or even go to space, but maybe doesn't know their path yet?
I'll give it a go. Okay. We'll reverse it here. My advice would be talk to anyone in aviation or aerospace that will listen to you, right? Go find the engineers, the logisticians, the pilots, the crew chiefs, the mechanics, anybody in aviation, in any kind of field, any discipline in aviation that you're interested in, go talk to them. I mean, you look just around the room tonight. I mean, Hoot Gibson, seriously, sitting right here. I mean, fanboy, right? So I would say talk to these folks. We got a room full of folks tonight that have tremendous experience in all aspects of aviation, space exploration, et cetera. So that would be it, is learn as much as you can, because while I thought, seriously, I was going to be the next Tom Cruise, clearly didn't work out for me. He did pretty well, but I'm glad I ended up where I was, just because I talked with a lot of people about what opportunities were available.
I think this is what I'll tell you. I'm 55 years old. I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. So for those kids in the audience, or those of you who have kids that want to be an aviator or want to lead or want to serve or want to fly, if they have that fire in their belly, tell them to follow the fire and not the fear, because it's going to be the fear that makes them not want to do it. And there's never going to be a perfect scenario in terms of this path. Like, should I go forward? What do I fly? Should I go the, Air Force route, Army route? Do I continue on and try to go into space? It's never going to be perfect, so just follow the fire. Don't follow the fear. And the other advice I'll say is, don't compare yourself to anybody else but you. Don't compare yourself to the kid across the street that built a rocket launcher in his garage at age 6, and don't compare yourself to the 12-year-old that knows fluent Mandarin. Who cares? You're your only competition. So when you're spending too much time worried about what other people are doing, you're not giving yourself the time to figure out what you want. So for anybody in this room who's got a kid that is thinking, I want to lead, I want to serve, I want to fly, I want to explore in space, give them all the support you can, because you never know. They could be the next Hoot Gibson, and the two of us could be sitting here fangirling and fanboying up on stage with them. So, follow the fire.
I think we're all playing it really cool.
Exactly.
There's an old expression that says, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. But where you wind up might not be anywhere near where you want to be. So I always tell young people, set yourself a goal. Do you have a goal? I knew from the time I was 10 years old, it was admiration for my dad. I wanted to be an aeronautical engineer and a test pilot, because that's what my dad was. And I knew that from the time I was about 10. Now, I never wavered from that, and that worked out. But you have got to have a goal, because again, if you don't know where you're going, you're going to wind up somewhere you don't want to be. And so that's an important thing to do. And you need to, I tell young people, I used to get a question all the time, hey, if I want to be an astronaut, should I be an astronomer? Should I be an astrophysicist? Should I be an engineer? I said, hey, look, none of the above. What you should do is something that you have a real passion for, because then you're going to be really good at it. And those were the kind of people that we picked to be astronauts, were people that had done very well at their chosen profession. So kind of like what you said, follow your passion. Find your passion in life and follow that, and set yourself a goal and go get it. Go be it.
Love it.
Yeah, absolutely. So follow your passion, but is there one skill that every future astronaut or aviator should master, not just technically, but personally or philosophically?
Teamwork. Teamwork. And like I mentioned, I said, when I became chief astronaut, I said, I don't have all the answers. I need help with this. And when we I was on many astronaut selection boards, both before I became chief astronaut and while I was chief. I was always a member of the selection board. One of the things that was a real killer was the weakly disguised ego. The thinly veiled ego was just the kiss of death in an astronaut interview. And at the end of it, so humility. We said, be humble. We said, be humble. And be a team player. You don't have to be the leader all the time. Be a good team member, be a good team player, and be a great leader. All of those things play into being a great leader.
I love that. I'm going to piggyback on what you just now said, Hoot, if that's okay. I think I call it emotional agility. It's kind of like learn yourself. If I can control what's going on in between my ears and I can control what's going on behind my rib cage in my heart, then I can control the situation. I can lead without arrogance, I can leave ego at the door, and I can serve without thinking there's going to be applause at the end. And I think that that is a really, really great trait, not just within aviation, because not only do you have to trust your own training, you have to trust the training of your crew, and you have to enable them, but I also think that it serves you very, very well, all the lessons learned within aviation, within life, within business, within all of those things. So to piggyback off of you, Hoot, with the teamwork, I think you got to learn yourself. You can learn your craft, you can learn your aircraft, you can make that aircraft sing when you're flying it, but you got to know who you are before you get in the cockpit so you can control everything that comes up.
Excellent.
Thank you, sir.
Yep. I would say, no matter what it is you choose to do, you got to commit. You got to be all in. And I'll give you an example. In August of 2002, I got the opportunity down in Waco, Texas, to go for a run with then 57-year-old President George W. Bush. Now, I don't know if you know about Texas in August, but it isn't cold. And his part of Texas on his ranch was not flat. But he invited us to go out for a run with him, and he had a 3-mile route. And there were about 50 of us, and this was the Air Force One was there. We were representing Marine One, the White House mess. We had Secret Service, the Medical Corps, a whole bunch of us. Well, I don't know if you know anything about President Bush and his commitment to fitness, but he was committed. And when we started that run, we started at about an 8-minute pace, and we finished at about a 6-minute and 30-second pace. But I was committed. There is no way at this time that, in my mind, this old guy was going to drop me on this run. We ended up doing 3 miles in 102-degree heat over hills in the dirt with his dogs running around. We did it in 21 minutes and 17 seconds. It's about a 7-minute mile for a guy 57 years old that had other things to worry about in his life rather than just staying fit. But he was committed to staying fit. I was committed to not being a guy who was going to drop on that run. I will tell you that. But, and Peggy Lee said it, when you're going to commit to your craft, whatever that is, becoming an astronaut, a pilot, an engineer, NASA administrator, commit, be all in, and become the best at that job that you absolutely possibly can be.
You make me think of, not wanting to fall behind in that. Makes me think of a whimsical astronaut motto, which says, better dead than look bad.
I got really nervous that you were going to say that the technical thing we had to master was doing a 6-minute and 30-second mile, and I was going to have to tap out of this industry. Okay, so we will end this on a fun question. If you could go back and relive one flight, military, space, or otherwise, just for the thrill or meaning of it, which one would it be and why? Or maybe if there was one that you wish you were on but you weren't.
We're all looking at you,
Well, I don't have any regrets. None of the things that I've done do I have any regret for. And so I have had so many wonderful experiences. After I left NASA, I was an air racer. I flew in the Reno air races altogether for 18 years. And I guess I'll say that was a real thrill. After 18 years of air racing, I finally got to race a really fast airplane. And my last year of racing, I won the Reno Unlimited Championship at almost 500 miles an hour against a field of 30 other airplanes. And that was a real thrill. And in fact, I was interviewed by the local TV station right after I won that championship, and they said, "How does this compare with being a space shuttle commander?" And I said, "You know what? This ranks right up there with being a space shuttle commander." So I guess maybe I'd like to relive that once again, too.
That's amazing.
I hope that wasn't too much bragging.
No, that was awesome.
We would sit here with you bragging this whole time and we'd be thrilled.
Absolutely. So my most memorable flight, I was not flying, was actually in a Black Hawk, and my SIP was flying, and my husband and I were in the back of that Black Hawk getting ready to jump. And the reason that is the most memorable flight for me is because parachute out. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I know, right? It defies logic. And perfectly good aircraft. But the reason that flight is so memorable to me is that was 30 years ago. It was the very beginning of our marriage. And 30 years later, we're still as stubborn. We're still a little in the head because no one jumps out of a perfectly good aircraft, on their own. But really what it showed was two soldiers, a Black Hawk, and a leap of faith. And so the symbolism for me is we took a leap of faith, not just in our careers, but with each other. And even though I wasn't piloting the aircraft, it was my aircraft. And I would relive that moment again and again and again because it's just a sentimental thing. So sorry to get mushy on you, but
excellent.
That's where we're at.
Just excellent.
Thank
I
you,
said it was
sir.
going to be fun and you're going to make me cry.
So I checked into the Presidential Helicopter Squadron on August 15th of 2001, and that date sounds somewhat familiar. About 3 weeks later, 9/11 happened. And if you ever saw the White House lawn landings before 9/11, they were always filmed, always shown live, lots of people on the lawn, very public event, and it's very exciting. Well, after 9/11, of course, things got really tight from a security perspective. And so those White House lawn landings, which are pretty much the pinnacle of a Marine One's flight, is landing there, pretty awesome. It became a very quiet event. It was filmed, but the film was delayed when it was showed. There was nobody on the lawn. Well, in 2004, on Election Day, the president had been down in Texas where he had to vote, and I had the opportunity to pick him up at Andrews Air Force Base and fly him back to the South Lawn. Now, I'd made many landings there, all very quiet, not a lot of fanfare, etc. Well, when you come in to land on the lawn, you always have to make a right-hand turn around the Washington Monument, which I always thought was really funny. Just go to the Washington Monument, turn right, and there you are. And so we're coming in, and that's when we call in and talk to the Secret Service to make sure there's no last minute, hey, oh, by the way, there's something going on. So we call, and one of the pieces of information they give you is the number of people that are there waiting to see the president land. Well, those numbers had ranged from 6 to 10 over the previous 2.5 years or so. But I roll around, I call in, and they gave us a number, 1,200 people. And I thought, 1,200 watching me? And then my co-pilot's like, that guy. They're watching him, not you. You're good. So we come in and there are flags everywhere. It was unbelievable. It was a gorgeous day. We were very excited. It was a great time for us. And so we come in and we do the landing, people cheering like crazy. You know, we don't hear them, but we see them waving flags and everything. And we land, this Marine detail drops the doors, and then the president always comes up into the cockpit and like will crack you on the shoulder or shake your hand or something. We come in, and I'm waiting, and he walks up into the cockpit, and he turns to me, nudges me on the shoulder. He says, "Nice landing." And I thought, of all the things you got to be concerned about today, thank you. I appreciate that. So yeah, I'd go back and relive that one. That one was pretty cool.
Awesome.
That's cool.
Well, that's a perfect note to end it on. Thank you all for this amazing discussion and also for your service. And I'm really grateful that you were here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. This was fun.
Thanks, everybody.
Well, I have had a wonderful time talking with you all tonight. And now we have a little treat for you as we take a tour down memory lane and celebrate Aviation Challenge's 35th anniversary.
Through leadership, teamwork,
that's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
and perseverance,
Odyssey Houston, we show you on the mains. It really looks great.
they forged a legacy.
America's first space shuttle, and the shuttle has cleared the tower.
A legacy that inspired a generation.
I was just an average kid with an above-average dream at that point of becoming an astronaut.
A foundation was built to carry this legacy forward.
I like to see successes groomed to come along behind us, and the space camp is the best way I know of to entice children into being interested in what we did in the past.
I'm excited about Aviation Challenge, and who knows, some of tomorrow's top commercial pilots and military pilots may come from Aviation Challenge.
Lives were transformed, and the legacy was passed on.
I just think it's the greatest, because there's so much to do, and it really makes you feel like you're an astronaut in training.
This camp really shows aviation. Simulators and all the training that you get's awesome.
Going to space camp as a kid really inspired me. You know, I knew what space was and I knew there were astronauts, but I got to really learn kind of what a day in the life looks like, what training might look like.
Advanced robotic development may seem like something out of the future, but here at Space Camp, it's the here and now.
The legacy lives as a new future dawns. We are the legacy.
It is now time to induct the 2025 class of the Space Camp Hall of Fame. Tonight's first inductee into the 2025 Hall of Fame is Trina Britcher.
I love Space Camp. I know for most people it's about the STEM, but for my kids, it's about building confidence that they can do things that maybe they never thought that they could do before.
Every year, SciViz, Space Camp for Interested Visually Impaired Students, is one of the most impactful weeks of the Space Camp year. Blind and visually impaired students come from across the world to experience it. There are many individuals who make it happen, but one of the more important behind the scenes is Trina Britcher. Trina always knew she wanted to work with children and the blind and visually impaired. Growing up, she volunteered at a local agency for the blind. This set her on the path to becoming a teacher. She went to Michigan State and eventually settled in West Virginia.
I could tell right away that she was an advocate for her students. Vision teachers have kids from the time they're 3 till the time they graduate from high school. I just never met anybody better than Trina.
Not only does she have unconditional love as a parent and as a teacher and educator, but she's patient. And I think patience is one of her greatest qualities. She was always positive. She was always loving, no matter what they came to her with or what families they had. She met them where they were, and she was able to make a difference in their lives.
Trina loved the longevity of getting to work with the same students throughout their entire grade school career. She always believed that if given the right tools, her students could overcome any obstacle in their lives.
Her love for what she does is just incredibly palpable. Just as important, her belief in all of her students' ability to be successful, to be independent, to be able to achieve whatever they wanted to. She never ever doubted any of that, and if anything, she did nothing but push all of us for that.
This belief in her students led her to bring the first students from a public school to SciViz as a teacher chaperone in 1997.
I have seen the students she's worked with get so excited to pack a bag and leave our state and be able to go somewhere else and learn about something that we would never have had the opportunity to in West Virginia. So I truly believe that she was able to give those students knowledge, a love for travel, and see what else is out there.
Both trips really allowed me to have a different view of space and all of the things that come with that, especially when it came to those types of units back in the classroom.
Trina kept bringing students back year after year. She grew up loving space. She even kept a scrapbook of every news story about Apollo 11 to prove to her grandfather that people actually went to the moon. So her time at Space Camp combined many of her loves in one place. Then, in 2008, SciViz needed a new vision professional to take over Braille for the program. The position was offered to Trina, and she accepted.
Even though we're all vision professionals, not everybody knows Braille. Trina developed a way to have the Braille, the large print, and the regular print all line for line and page for page. Trina just is that large chunk of the accessibility package that makes kids involved and gives them an equal footing as all the other kids get when they come in there, just by opening up a book and having those materials under their fingers.
Trina's journey with Space Camp took another step when she attended Space Academy for Educators. She had been named the Braille Institute's Teacher of the Year for Excellence in Braille. Dan Oates arranged for her to attend Space Camp with the National Teachers of the Year program, earning Trina her own set of Space Camp wings. Now retired from public education, Trina now works as an adjunct instructor at Marshall University, while keeping up with all of her SciViz responsibilities. She also speaks publicly as often as she can about SciViz and Space Camp, always advocating tirelessly for children who are blind and visually impaired.
There's so many of us that may not necessarily be exactly where we are today if it wasn't for that belief and expectation from you, always encouraging us to go and be where we needed to go and be each day.
I am a teacher because of my mom. I saw my mom throughout the years pour her love, dedication, time into the students that she had, and I just always aspired to do that because of what I saw. And I would just like to say, Mom, I wish Dad could be here because I know Dad is looking down right now and he is so proud of the accomplishments you've made.
Please welcome Space Camp Hall of Fame inductee Trina Britcher. Inducting Trina are Hall of Fame members Dan Oates, Dr. Tara Sweeney, Scott Holcomb, and Marlon Mackey.
Wow. Wow. That was really something watching that. I appreciate that so much for those who put that together. I am in awe and have great admiration for the men that are in this Space Camp Hall of Fame team with me, and I just want to say that it's such an honor for me to be included in this group. Thank you very much. I also want to take this opportunity to thank some very special people in my life. The first would be Dan. Dan is a wonderful friend. It goes far beyond Space Camp. It just checks in on me, and he helps me with all the Space Camp materials, but he always looks out for me, and I appreciate that. Dan asked me to get started with Space Camp back in 1997, which is kind of embarrassing that it was that long ago. But I wasn't going to tell this story, but my children said I had to tell this story, and I don't even know if Dan knows it. But when I first started, I was a teacher in West Virginia. I hadn't been in West Virginia that long. I had the first public school kids that came to Space Camp. And so I would get off of work on a Friday, and I would drive 2 hours across the mountains of West Virginia to get to the West Virginia School for the Blind. And along the way, I would pick up blind and visually impaired kids that I didn't know from places like, because this is a long time ago, Grafton, West Virginia, and wherever. And I'd get to the West Virginia School for the Blind where I didn't know anybody. And I would be given a dorm room, and I'd sleep in the dorm room that night. And they would wake me up, house parents would wake me up at 4 in the morning, and I'd get those kids that were blind and visually impaired on a bus with all their stuff. And there weren't enough seats on the bus for everybody. So the children had to be in seats. So the adults sat on the floor of the bus, and we drove to Washington, D.C., where we would get on a plane and fly to Atlanta, and then we'd fly into Space Camp. And we'd start Space Camp on Saturday. So I'd been up for I don't even know how many hours. And we would start Space Camp, and I moved into the hab with 6 women I didn't know in bunk beds to share a bathroom with no doors on the showers. And we would be with the kids from sun up to way past sundown. And when the week was over, I would think, I am never doing this again. And then Dan would call and say, do you want to go back? And I'd say, yeah, I do. So it must be in my blood, because I sure do love Space Camp. And I appreciate Dan including me and having me do the work that I do. I also need to say a special thanks for my husband, who has passed away, because I have 3 children, and they were little when I would go to Space Camp. And he would make Space Camp meatloaf every year, and those children, it was out of the Fannie Farmer cookbook, but we called it Space Camp meatloaf, and they ate meatloaf every night of the week, because that's all he made. And I would like to thank the team that we work with, which is Jim Allen, who isn't here, Joni, who is our Brailleist, and Connie Baker, who helps me do Braille back in West Virginia when I have a lot of preparation, like I'm going to have next year when the new building opens. I have to thank my children. I have wonderful children. My son, Gabe, who is here with his wife, Sayaka, from Japan. He works for Lockheed in Japan, and he wanted to be here, and I really appreciate him coming that far to be here. My son, Matt, and his wife, Elizabeth, live in Wake Forest, and Matt has a new job, so I know it wasn't easy for them to get away, but they're here. And my daughter, Sarah, who I had no idea she was going to be on my video, and her brand new son, Michael. That was an effort to get them here, and they came from West Virginia, and I appreciate that too. So my children are wonderful, and I appreciate them being here. I also want to just say a special note of thanks to my mom and dad, because I do feel like I have a very adventurous spirit, and they fostered that in me, even though I'm sure that wasn't all easy. And lastly, for that part of this, I want to thank my friends that have come from far away. Everyone said I brought an entourage, but I have really close friends and family that are here, and I really appreciate them coming and supporting me. But
The people that really need thanked at this time is Space Camp, because Space Camp opens their arms and their hearts for our students. They make all the accommodations that we ask them to make. They give us their best crew trainers. They make sure that the airplanes have a pool noodle on the front of that little thing that sticks out so the kids don't impale themselves. They do everything that they can to make it a safe and a great atmosphere for our students. And I can't think of any other place that does that. And we really, really appreciate that. And what that does for our students, the reason that this is so special for our students is that many of our students who are blind and visually impaired are alone in a school. They don't have any other blind and visually impaired kids around them. My students never went to a school for the blind. So when they come here, they get to hear the tap, tap, tap of other canes. They get to hear and see other kids that are using Braille like them, requesting Braille. Children who have ocular albinism suddenly see other kids that look just like them. And they get to accomplish missions. They get to do experiments. They have magnifiers and all the things that they need. And what that does is so much more than improve their STEM skills. That improves their confidence in themselves and their belief in themselves, and they take that with them the rest of their lives. And many of those students that you saw on that video, if you would talk to them today, they would say the best week of their life was the week that they spent here at Space Camp. And that's because of the people here that work so hard to make that happen. By working with children who are blind and visually impaired, I have learned a lot of things. But one of the things that I think that the people here at Space Camp would agree with me is that we were all created very differently. Today, when I went to Blue Origin, I just tried to keep up my mind with what they were saying, because it was really beyond me, even though I had a great interest in it, and I'm going to go back and read about it, but that isn't the skill God gave me. I'm not going to be building engines at Blue Origin, but it is interesting. So when my students come here, I think that many people think that they're not going to be able to do it, or that we're going to have to do so much to make them be able to accomplish the tasks that they're here for. But that isn't what happens. They come here and they do a great job. And I think that what I've learned from my students and from today at Blue Origin is that we were all created different. We all have different strengths and weaknesses, and there is beauty in that diversity, and we need to embrace that. The second thing I'd like to say is that life isn't fair. My students have to work harder. The voice that you heard on there was a student of mine that works in Washington, D.C. She had to work very hard to get where she is. And this kind of goes along with what the three people up here said earlier, that it's okay to have to work harder. It's okay to have to really work to achieve the goals that you want to achieve if you really want them, if you want to be successful. It's okay to have to work hard to level the playing field. And I hope that I've taught my students that and my children that. And the last thing is, and this goes back to Dan asking me in 1997, when opportunity knocks, answer the door. There were a million reasons I could have said I couldn't come to Space Camp. I'm so glad I didn't say that. So I'd like to close by just saying I've always tried to live my life to help other people. That brings me joy. That's what makes me happy. This award is special because it makes me feel like maybe I've done that a little bit, and I appreciate the acknowledgement for that. I'd like to close with a quote from Pope Francis. Living for others is a rule of nature. We are all born to help each other, no matter how difficult it is. Life is good when you are happy, but life is much better when others are happy because of you. Thank you.
Our next inductee into the 2025 Space Camp Hall of Fame is Homer Hickam.
I had discovered that learning something, no matter how complex, wasn't hard when I had a reason to want to know it. These are words from Homer Hickam's best-selling memoir, Rocket Boys. Homer is many things to people all over the world. To some, he's an author. To others, he's a retired NASA engineer and space advocate. To those at the U.S. Space and Rocket Center, Homer is something more. Homer was born in Coalwood, West Virginia. As a teenager, he saw Sputnik dot across the October sky and was bit with the space bug. It was after that that Homer and some friends began building amateur rockets. They called themselves the Rocket Boys, and with the encouragement of their chemistry and physics teacher, Ms. Riley, entered the National Science Fair, winning a gold medal.
I always thought, wow, this is such a cool story, how someone like Homer and his story inspires kids, men and women around the world to do things great, to reach beyond their grasp, to try. Homer inspired so many people, so many friends, not only his close friends in Coalwood, West Virginia, but people like me.
But what many people don't know is where he went after Coalwood. He received a degree in industrial engineering from Virginia Tech, then served 6 years in the U.S. Army, being honorably discharged in 1970 as a captain. He then found his way to Huntsville, Alabama, as an engineer for the Army and then NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center. At NASA, he was an astronaut trainer who assisted as the lead scuba instructor for the Neutral Buoyancy Simulator, or NBS for short.
I first worked with Homer Hickam when I was an astronaut assigned to the payload crew of the Space Lab Japan mission. I found him to be surprising, caring, and crazy talented. My respect for Homer only grew when we went to Japan, and he was responsible for making sure all of the crew's schedule was correct, we got the training that we need, and also diffusing any conflict or any problems that might be happening.
It was his work with the NBS that brought Homer into the orbit of the U.S. Space and Rocket Center. After the Challenger accident grounded spaceflight, Homer heard the Rocket Center was looking to build a swimming pool for neutral buoyancy training for Space Camp trainees. But Homer had a better idea. What if we build a miniature version of the NBS?
So he came to talk to fellow West Virginian Ed Bugby, who was the executive director at that time. And he and Ed got together, and Homer didn't just suggest the idea, he helped get the idea into play.
Homer was given a budget, and he set about making the UAT a reality. He had to make it deeper and less wide than he wanted because of the allotted space he was given. Chicago Bridge and Iron Company, who built the original NBS at Marshall, were contracted to build the UAT. They donated the transportation and labor costs to the project, allowing Homer to realize the underwater astronaut trainer.
He was a great mentor and made a very challenging job a lot of fun. He was the best dive instructor with those kids. He was always the perfect example of patience, kindness, safety, fun, and expertise. He was also my dive instructor. Working with Homer was without a doubt the very best part of my time at the UAT.
Homer was the lead instructor for the first 2 years, but as NASA started gearing up for a return to spaceflight, he had to focus his attentions back on his job as an astronaut trainer. Homer's next brush with the U.S. Space and Rocket Center came after he retired from NASA and had become an author. He also became a member of the Rocket Center's governing board, the Alabama Space Science Exhibit Commission. And he frequently speaks to teachers that come to Space Academy for Educators.
You know, in this story, he himself was motivated by Miss Riley, and he always brings it back around to that. And he turns to the teachers and he's like, you could be somebody's Miss Riley.
For someone who is so busy and so in demand, he's always found time to make this place a priority.
We have miles to go, Homer Hickam, and I want to be there with you. I want to help you any way I can. You deserve this award for everything you've done for all the kids you've inspired.
Homer, I'm your forever colleague, friend, and fan. Congratulations.
Please welcome Space Camp Hall of Fame inductee, Homer Hickam. Inducting Homer are Hall of Fame members Penny Pettigrew, Dr. Danny Hackus, Dr. Michelle Christensen, and Peter Marquez.
I'm already crying. So usually when I go out speaking, as my agent Burke Allen will tell you, is here tonight, I tell stories like Paco the cat who meowed in space, or about the time I blew up my mom's rose garden fence. But tonight I'd like to make a more traditional talk in which I give thank yous to a lot of the people that have been so important in my life and have led to this night. So if you'll just bear with me, I'm going to list a number of people. Of course, as shown in that wonderful video, and thank you so much, Christian, who put this together, Heather and May, and all those who spoke on that. It's just wonderful. I'm blown away by it. But I do want to thank Ed Buckby, the first director of the Space and Rocket Center, who is mentioned in that video as a fellow West Virginian, who let me design and supervise the construction and set up the training for our wonderful underwater astronaut trainer. And I'd also like to thank the first underwater astronaut trainer dive masters. And a few of them are here tonight. Bill Revelez is here, Cindy Walker. Some of the folks that are not here, I wish that could be, Carl Spurlock, Linda Terry, Brenda Bradford is here tonight. Tina McDonald is here tonight. She's also my attorney, but she's retired, so it's okay. Wes Hoopengardner, Lori Kegley, who was on the video, who was our UAT's first manager. She's in Grand Cayman tonight, so good for you, Lori. Even Dr. Deborah Barnhart was part of our team back then, before she became the CEO of the Space and Rocket Center. But we were charged with trying to figure out how to take teenagers, some of whom who had never even snorkeled before, down to a depth of 25 feet within 2 hours. And we pioneered that, how to do that, and to do it safely, and to teach them a little bit about neutral buoyancy simulation of microgravity in space. And the UAT team came through, and they have ever since. I'd also like to thank my NASA mentors and colleagues. Tony O'Neill, who's here tonight, with his lovely wife Cosette. Tony I met Tony first in the Space Lab program office when I first started working for NASA back in 1981. And Tony kind of took me under his wing and taught me how to be a NASA engineer. Al English, who's here tonight. Al and I have worked in a neutral buoyancy simulator together and across a number of programs. Teacher Carol, his wife, is here, and also sister-in-law Margaret, who's a National Park Service ranger. So thank you, Margaret, for coming all the way out from Wyoming for this. I really appreciate it. Some other of my mentors, John Thomas, Jerry Richardson, Chuck Lewis. Chuck Lewis formed, Chuck and Deborah Underwood formed the training branch that we had to figure out for the first time how to train scientists that were going to go into space and operate scientific payloads on the space lab. It was not easy. Some of my other training managers at that time who joined me, and we were a happy crew. We were brothers and sisters, such as Ken Smith, Patty Moore, Kimberly Robinson, Alice Dories, Carol McLemore, Julie Sanchez, Angie Johnston, and all of our wonderful Teledyne Brown contractors as well. I've had the privilege of working with a number of astronauts across the years, and I can just name a few of them, but have been very important in my life. Kathy Sullivan, Bruce McCandless, Story Musgrave, Bonnie Dunbar, Hoot Gibson, who actually rescued my career in 1992. I'm sure he's forgotten about that. For your young people, or for context, 1992, the Civil War had just ended right before that. El Onizuka, Krista McAuliffe, Jerry Ross, Miss Baker. Yes, Ed Buckme let me clean Miss Baker's cage for a week. I actually had this fantasy about Miss Baker. I was going to break her out and carry her to Isla de Guanaja in Honduras and let her go. Instead, I took a human female. I'm not quite sure what was the best plan there, but Jan Davis, Mae Jemison, Mark Lee, Pinky Nelson, Sonny Carter, Eileen Collins, my wonderful Japanese astronauts that I was privileged to train on Space Lab J, Mamoru Mori, Takao Doi, who actually carried the National Space Council medal that I won, the National Science Fair, medal that I won back in 1960 into space. Thank you, Takao. And of course, more recently, Jared Eisenman and the wonderful Inspiration 4 crew that I got to meet. And for our space camp, again, I'm going to unfortunately probably leave a few people out, and I regret that, but our space camp friends that I've worked with and my mentors, there are just so many. Robin Soprano, who heads up space camp, Dr. Kay Taylor, our education head, Dr. Kimberly Robinson, our CEO, our foundation head, Brenda Carr, and we also have, of course, our Space and Rocket Center Commission members here, such as General Jim Rogers, our chair. Neat thing about being on this commission is that we may argue sometimes and disagree, but we all agree on this one thing. We are trying our very best to make the Space and Rocket Center and Space Camp to be the best it can be. Heather Roden, who heads up taking care of our teachers every summer, and I get an opportunity to work with Heather and go out and talk to the teachers. And on a personal side, tonight, Kelly Arnold and Justin Eicherman here, they're my next door neighbors. I recently had a bout that required me to go on chemotherapy, and they looked after me. And also always on call was Dr. Pat Wilson and her husband Dave, who's here tonight, and also my daughter Amy Bandis is here, always on call and looking out for me. And finally, I'd like to dedicate this award to my mom and dad in heaven, and Miss Riley, my teacher in heaven, who spurred me on to greater heights, and to the people of Coalwood, West Virginia, who raised me, and of course the Rocket Boys, Roy Lee Cook, Odell Carroll, Sherman Sears, Quentin Wilson, and Billy Rose. And finally, again, to Joe Johnston, the director, and the actor Jake Gyllenhaal, who played me in October Sky to such perfection, it has inspired millions of people around the world to this day. And I have no doubt that Jake will someday stand in front of the Motion Picture Academy of Arts and Scientists and accept a gold statuette named Oscar. But even then, he will not be as privileged as I am tonight. Because not only did I get inducted into the Space Camp Hall of Fame, but I also got to meet Astro Alexandria. Eat your heart out, Jake. Thank you. Thank you.
Our third inductee into the 2025 Space Camp Hall of Fame is Joseph Pelfrey.
I went to space camp as a kid, and just being able to see the possibility of what I could do in my career was just inspiring and really drove me to get to this place.
Hardworking, driven, and loyal are just some of the words those who know Joseph Pelfrey best would use to describe him. The small South Carolina textile town that Joseph grew up in may seem worlds away from the manufacturing facilities and launch pads of NASA, but it was this community that instilled within him those values that still drive him to this day. Joseph developed an early interest in aviation and spaceflight from the influence of an uncle who was a pilot and a great-uncle who worked for Dr. Von Braun at NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama.
He was definitely always driven to do space. Like, that was always his desire, was to be a part of NASA.
It seemed like he was always interested in it. Anything that had to do with space systems or what was going on with NASA, he was always on top of it. If it was on TV, if it was a news thing, he was just glued to the TV.
Joseph would record space shuttle launches on his VHS cassettes and send his great-uncle letters with his analysis of each launch. When the Challenger accident occurred, Joseph was moved by how the astronauts were unable to finish their mission and wanted to help NASA ensure something like this could never happen again. From that point on, he knew what he wanted to be when he grew up, an aerospace engineer and astronaut.
When he first told me that's what he wanted to do, and I said, "You don't even know what that is." He said, "Sure do," and he told me. And we knew he was serious. But we always told him that he could do anything he wanted to do as long as he's willing to work for it.
And Joseph went to work for it. He learned about space camp from his great-uncle. While it was a financial stretch for his parents to send him, they got him to space camp when he was 12 years old in October of 1989.
I think it actually cemented his drive to attain the goals that he was setting out.
The next stop for Joseph was the South Carolina Governor's School for Science and Mathematics, where he attended their 2-year residential high school program for juniors and seniors. It was there that Joseph met his future wife, Nicole.
I was a year ahead of him, and a portion of my class moved back to campus early to help move the juniors in. His parents' car pulled up with the stuff, and I got his dorm fridge and carried it up to his 4th floor dorm room and, helped unload his car and get him moved in.
After high school, Joseph majored in aerospace engineering at Auburn University. From there, he returned to Huntsville to work at NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center as a contractor for space station systems engineering. Once at Marshall, his career took off, becoming a NASA civil servant in 2004. He worked on over 30 flown experiments to the International Space Station before returning to his roots working on the Ares program and then the Space Launch System. Eventually, he was selected for NASA's Executive Development Program and moved into executive management. Joseph attributes his success to a decision he made early on in his career. He was going to walk through whatever door opened and see where it led him. Well, there was no way he could have planned his trajectory. Everything he learned and everyone who encouraged him along the way equipped him for where he is now, working as the director of NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center.
I'm very proud of him because of the person he is. Joseph's a great father. He's very devoted. And I think it was cool. It was a good bonding experience when she was younger and went to camp, and he pulled out his jacket and his, space camp t-shirt, and she was able to, have that tie. I think it's been a cool thing for them to do together.
It doesn't surprise me that he would be inducted, and he's worked very hard. He's moved his career up and up and up, and only the individual can do that. You have to work hard and be good to people, and I think that's one of his strongest suits. We're so proud of you, and we love you.
Please welcome Space Camp Hall of Fame inductee, Joseph Pelfrey. Inducting Joseph are Hall of Fame members Jared Isaacman, Burke Hare, Vincent Vazzo,
So I grew up a shuttle kid. It's part of the shuttle generation. Growing up, I recorded or watched every shuttle launch so I could go home and make notes. As the video said, I would send in my analysis of each launch to NASA. I never got a response officially, but what I was really doing was sending it to my great uncle who lived here in Huntsville and worked for Marshall for over 40 years. So on January 28th, 1986, I was sitting in a cold lunchroom with my fellow classmates around a single color TV. And we were very excited about the first teacher in space, but I was more excited about explaining what was happening to my classmates. As that day turned to tragedy, I went home and watched that video over and over and over again so that I could do my analysis and send it in. But it was really that day that led me to make a commitment that this was the industry that I wanted to be in, that I wanted to be a part of a mission of exploration that crew didn't get to finish. And so it was that day that I set on a path that I never could have mapped in my life. 3 years later, my parents surprised me with a trip to space camp. And so when I showed up to Huntsville in 1989, I was wide-eyed with big dreams and small-town roots. I was ready to tackle the simulations of shuttle flight, learning the physics of rocketry. And there was no doubt that Space Camp had a tremendous impact on my career and really added to the drive that I had to be a part of our nation's space exploration program. It was here that I learned the power of teamwork. I learned perseverance. I learned how to do problem solving under pressure, and even learned about the risk and sacrifice with exploration. You see, during my final simulation, I was doing an EVA, and we had an anomaly come up with the shuttle's propulsion system. Our commander had to evaluate different options, and he chose what he thought was the safest route, which was close the payload bay doors. Well, he chose wrong because I was still outside. I think he went on to have a good career as an accountant, which is probably safe for everybody. Now, years later, I could never have imagined that a small town kid from South Carolina would have the opportunity to lead NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center, to be the 15th center director and the first Space Camp alumni to serve in that role. I get to work alongside the nation's best engineers and scientists and business professionals each day, helping our nation achieve some amazing goals in space exploration and scientific discovery. Marshall Space Flight Center is celebrating its 65th anniversary this year. And we are proud to have the U.S. Space and Rocket Center as our official visitor center, but more importantly, our partner in inspiring the next generation of engineers and scientists and explorers. That partnership is critical to our success in future at the agency and amongst all of our industry partners around the country. So to the past and present and future Space Camp alumni, you are the heart of this program. Your dedication, your courage, and your big dreams will help us shape the future of space exploration. Thank you to our distinguished guests, fellow inductees, Space Camp alumni, the Alumni Association, the Education Foundation, and most importantly, the incredible staff here at the U.S. Space and Rocket Center. And thanks to my family, my parents who couldn't be here today, who no doubt sacrificed a lot to make my visit here happen. To my brothers here, and most importantly to my wife and daughter who have stood beside me as I've been able to live out a childhood dream. So I'm deeply honored and humbled to stand before you as a member of the 2025 class. This honor is not just for me. It belongs to anyone who challenged me beyond my own horizon, my mentors, teachers, camp counselors. It belongs to my colleagues at NASA who each day bring their skill and expertise to dedicate themselves to advancing humanity's goal and presence in the universe. And it belongs to every young person who's ever looked up at the stars and dared to imagine themselves among them. Thank you.
Our fourth inductee into the Space Camp Hall of Fame is U.S. Senator Tim Sheehy.
My parents were nice enough to send me down here to Space Camp and immediately fell in love with anything that had to do with aerospace. It's such an important place to inspire the next generation of pilots, engineers, astronauts, etc., etc.
For as long as Tim Sheehy could remember, he wanted to serve his country in the military, though it wasn't until 8 years old that aviation entered the picture. Tim's next-door neighbor was a Korean War Navy pilot and took Tim flying in his Piper Cub. From that point on, Tim wanted to be a naval aviator. Naturally, this interest eventually developed into a love for space and a dream to also be an astronaut. It should be no surprise that Space Camp would soon follow. He came time and time again, attending either Space Camp or Aviation Challenge a total of 7 times.
I remember Tim's many experiences at Space Camp in Huntsville, Alabama, of which a couple actually attended alongside Tim. As Tim was plopped in Huntsville, Alabama, some 900 miles from home, attending Space Camp really fostered Tim's ability to be a quick study and manage new situations in life personally and professionally.
These experiences were immensely impactful for him and further cementing his dreams. He also began taking flying lessons from the same next-door neighbor who sparked his interest in aviation. He soloed before he could even drive a car and got his pilot's license when he was 17. At 18, Tim was headed to the U.S. Naval Academy, firmly on his way to achieving his goal of becoming a naval aviator and astronaut. But while he was there, the Afghanistan and Iraq wars broke out. Tim realized that while he wanted to fly fighter jets, these were ground wars, and that the country needed more boots on the ground. That was when he decided to go down the path to become a Navy SEAL. Very quickly, Tim became a natural leader among his squad.
He always led from the front. Every one of our teammates trusted him with their lives. And he never asked somebody to do something he wasn't willing to do himself.
Along the way, Tim did a joint tour with U.S. Army Special Operations Forces, completing Army Ranger School. He also became a mini submarine pilot. When Tim left active service in 2014, he returned to aviation and discovered another kind of war to fight. He founded Bridger Aerospace, an aerial firefighting and wildfire management service using all of his savings and an all-veteran team. The company quickly grew, and so did the staff, creating hundreds of jobs in Bridger's home state of Montana.
As the company grew, Tim grew, we all learned a lot, but he doesn't micromanage folks. He knows how to motivate people to dig down and do what they're capable of doing and not being afraid to do it.
Tim eventually spun out a sister company called Ascent Vision Technologies, a defense company specializing in counter-drone technology and aerial surveillance systems. At this point, it had been nearly 20 years since Tim was last at the U.S. Space and Rocket Center, but he never forgot about it or Space Camp. In 2019, he reconnected with the U.S. Space and Rocket Center Education Foundation. Through this connection, he contributed financially to numerous fundraising campaigns, none more important than his and his brother's contributions to the Pathfinder Restoration Project, restoring the Space Shuttle Pathfinder and ensuring the continuation of its legacy. Over time, Tim had come to realize that there was yet one more way he could serve his country. In 2023, he announced he was going to run for one of 2 Senate seats from Montana. On November 5th, 2024, Tim was elected and went to work in Washington.
People often spend a lifetime climbing the professional ranks in military service, the business community, and in politics. Before turning 40, Tim has essentially had 3 very respectable careers in each of these arenas.
Becoming a United States Navy SEAL and a United States Senator is quite the feat. I'm most proud of Tim for becoming the man he is today. Loving husband and a great father and mentor to his children.
Hello, Senator Sheehy. Jared Isaacman here. I wanted to congratulate you, as one Space Camp alum to another, on this well-deserved recognition as you were inducted in the Space Camp Hall of Fame. You saw me take the ride of my life when I went to space on Inspiration 4 in 2021. You supported the mission, you supported St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, and you even reconnected me to Space Camp, and as a result, there's now an Inspiration 4 building being constructed in Huntsville, Alabama. Then, most recently, you were there for me on an even crazier ride going through the Senate confirmation process. You introduced me at my hearing, you took great personal and political risks for me. This, honestly, it didn't surprise me, because you're a Navy SEAL, you're a patriot, and an American hero that doesn't back down from anything you believe in, and will always be a champion for American leadership in the last great frontier. I don't think I've met a more honorable person than you, sir. I congratulate you again on this recognition and wish you Godspeed as you represent the people of Montana and lead this country into the future.
Please welcome Space Camp Hall of Fame inductee Tim Sheehy. Inducting Tim are Hall of Fame members Jared Isaacman, John Hecker, Joshua Whitfield, and Tim Bailey.
Well, in case you're, thank you. So in case you're wondering, she's also my name. Those are also my pronouns. This day and age, we've got to state those up front. Thank you to the whole staff here for an amazing event. Thank you for keeping Space Camp alive, strong, and well. Most importantly, thank you to my family, my mom, who actually would drive me down here every time to Space Camp, which was fun. My dad, of course, sacrificed a great deal to send us here. And my wife, who stayed married to me somehow through 2 wars and all the other adventures you heard about. So this is an incredible place. And if you'd asked me when I was 16, 22, 26, 32, 36, where I would be in 5 years, I would have given you a very, very confident answer every time, and I would have been wrong every single time. So one thing that I've learned is you never know what event in life will take you in a different direction. And here at Space Camp, I learned a great many things, met great many people, and obviously fostered connections, like you heard from Jared here, that have stayed with me through my whole life. So I love this country. I've fought for it. My wife and I both fought for it. I met her at the Naval Academy. She was a Marine officer, by the way, so understand that the dual military couple. But we're a nation of frontiers. We always have been. First, we had to cross the ocean. Then it was the Appalachians. Then it was the plains of the Midwest. Then it was the Rocky Mountains. then it was the bottom of the sea, the sound barrier, and now it's space. And although we love the lofty rhetoric that's inspiring, we also have to have people who are willing to do hard things to protect our way of life, and sometimes those things are dangerous. And our new frontier is space. And make no mistake, that space will be contested. Other people will try to take that dominance from us, and we're going to have to work very hard night and day to protect this nation on that frontier. And the future warriors on that frontier will be pilots and astronauts and engineers and program managers like our director at Marshall here. And it's going to take a whole community of people to maintain dominance and protect our way of life. And the next generation of those warriors will come from this place right here, from this program, and I'm proud to be a part of that. Thank you for coming tonight. Thanks for your support. Thank you.
Our final inductee into the Space Camp Hall of Fame tonight is Diallo Wallace.
I am who I am because of my week-long experience at Space Camp. I found the self-efficacy to believe that it could happen for me.
Up until April 12, 1981, Diallo Wallace wanted to be a truck driver or paleontologist, but when he saw STS-1 lift off the launch pad on his mother's 13-inch black and white TV and heard that the two men on board were naval aviators who flew jets that took off and landed on ships at sea, a new dream took shape. While other kids were keeping up with the stats of Michael Jordan, Wayne Gretzky, and Bo Jackson, Diallo knew the flight rotations of each space shuttle mission. He was determined to become a naval aviator and astronaut like John Young and Robert Crippen of STS-1.
Dee knew his dreams early on. Heck, his 6th grade art project had the word NASA sprawled across it. And then we made it to junior high. And in junior high, all of my notes and all of my letters were signed by Diallo S. Wallace, future astronaut.
While this was his dream, he was the child of a single parent with very little money. Deep down, he didn't believe it could ever happen for him. Even so, his mom supported his dreams. Diallo found out about Space Camp when he was in junior high and wanted to go so badly. He kept trying to figure out how he was going to afford it with his paper route while he was also contributing to the household groceries. He felt it was almost guilty to want to go when his family was struggling for basic needs. Enter Apollo 15 astronaut Jim Irwin. He visited Diallo's high school, and Diallo's physics teacher recommended Diallo to lead Jim around. After this experience, Diallo and Jim became really good friends. They would write letters back and forth. And in those letters, Diallo expressed his desire to go to Space Camp, and Jim encouraged Diallo to apply for a scholarship. Shortly thereafter, Diallo found out he had received a scholarship to go to Space Camp. To this day, Diallo still believes that Jim had something to do with his receiving it. Sadly, Jim passed away right before Diallo went to Space Camp, but Diallo has never forgotten what Jim did for him. At Space Camp, Diallo realized that his dreams were up to him to achieve. He won the Right Stuff Award and made a decision to chase his dreams regardless of where he came from.
And after Space Camp, when he returned, he was more determined and more dedicated than ever to pursuing his dreams. He put himself through college right out of high school, only to find out after obtaining his bachelor's degree that he had to have a pure science or a pure engineering degree. But he didn't let that stop him. You know what he did? He turned around, he enrolled in another college, and he got his second bachelor's to put him on his path to continue following his dreams. You see, he didn't stop there. He became a Navy pilot. He flew in the Gulf Wars. And then he went back to school again, and he added on his master's. Heck, I think he might even have 2, but I've lost count at this point.
After his time as a Navy pilot, he became a classroom teacher, teaching aviation and engineering to middle and high school students. He even took his students across the country from California to Space Camp.
Diallo took our kids to Space Camp, and for them, it was eye-opening, traveling all across the country to get to Huntsville, Alabama, and really see what's possible. The amount of technology and just the sheer number of jobs that are available in science for people who are interested and willing to pursue careers in STEM.
He is now an aerospace engineering instructor at the United States Naval Academy. To this day, Diallo still dreams of being an astronaut.
While he has applied multiple times and not been accepted, he has served as an analog astronaut and still hopes to one day fly to space. However, he has since realized that his why in life is not simply to be an astronaut, but to help make them instead.
You could not have picked someone better to enter into the Hall of Fame at Space Camp. Congratulations, Diallo. I love you.
Just know that both Mom and Fari are here. The warmth that you feel around you here today, know that that is the pride that they are spilling over with for their brother and son. You are loved, Diallo Wallace, and everyone in your circle will never, ever stop rooting for you and for your dreams.
Please welcome Space Camp Hall of Fame inductee, Diallo Wallace. Inducting Diallo are Hall of Fame members Dr. Cindy Mahler, Tim Bailey, Aileen Velez-Vega, and Dr. Michelle Christensen.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for this. This is incredible, and I just want to say thank you to everyone here in the administration for such an incredible time so far. I'm going to speak to a lot of things that you heard up here, but before we do that, I just want to give an appreciation to those that are out there downrange right now who are enabling us to have this time and this moment for us. You know, the ones who've deployed out there 24/7, 365. So if we can just give them a round of applause so we can do this. Okay. To my fellow inductees, I am humbled by you. You know, when I got the call that I was going to be part and then found out the class, I was like, are you sure you don't want me to carry these people's luggage or something? Because they are incredible. So thank you for having me a part of that class. But I want to start with a social experiment. I'd ask you to close your eyes and think back for a moment. Close your eyes and just think back to that exact moment that caused you to fall in love with things that fly through the air and space. And I'd ask you to open your eyes now and look at the smiles at your table. And that's something that we all share in this room, is this unique and innate love for flying. And that's something that we want to do here at Space Camp, is share that with young people, get them inspired, get them fired up about the opportunities here. For some of you here in Huntsville for the first time, I hope this Space Camp experience is that moment for you. As I shared on the podcast, my space moment was on April 12th of '81, and I know some of the young people can't even fathom that date. But yes, shortly after air, dirt, and water you drank from a green water hose was invented, people who love space were created. So here is some context about what I was doing at this precious young age in '81. I was learning what a conjunction does from a railroad conductor. Thanks, Gen Xers, for that. How to count from a vampire. Thanks, Gen Xers. And learning about military service, let me put the voice on, from America's daring, highly trained Special Mission Force, whose purpose was to defend human freedom, and ensuring at the end of the show we understood that knowing was half the battle. So on that day in 81, I did see John Young and Robert Crippen go up, and I found out they were naval aviators. People who flew, who to this day just amaze me, that they fly off of boats and ships going forward and projecting power on behalf of this nation and the great people of this nation. So I was hooked. I got to say it. And for all the naval aviators in here, fly Navy. I was just an average kid with now above average dreams of becoming a naval aviator, going to the Naval Postgraduate School for Astronautics, and becoming an astronaut. And I got to say, well, 2 out of 3 ain't bad, especially if you're a baseball fan. So now I've transformed goal number 3 to making astronauts. Excuse me. And I can say that they are going to be astronauts from the newly commissioned second lieutenants, ensigns, and current midshipmen at the Naval Academy that I have the extreme privilege of being able to instruct. I one day want to be able to walk into work and sit and wear a shirt that says, "I make astronauts." Now I want to fast forward in my story to my senior year of high school. And while my friends were concerned with Michael, Wayne, and a man named Bo, who apparently knew everything about anything, I was consumed with learning about Sally, a guy named Guy, and a Navy pilot with a call sign of Hoot that had the coolest mustache since Raleigh Fingers. Now, I'm a firm believer that angels are placed in our lives that we don't recognize until much later in life. In that senior year, my life was changed by 2. The first is my high school physics and teacher, Mr. Richard Virai, who indulged my questions and always had me leave him pondering more things to come up with questions about, which is job security if you're an educator. So to all the educators out there, thank you for what you're doing. And thank you, Richard, for what you've done for me. Well, one day, the morning announcements were being read, and it was said that an Apollo 15 astronaut was coming and teachers could nominate someone to be his escort. Mr. Virai paused the class and not walked, but ran down to the office and said, quote unquote, "Boy, do I have a guy for you." So thank you again, Richard, for that. Because I became Jim Irwin's escort, and Jim was that second angel for me, becoming my friend who eagerly responded to my letters, my phone calls. I was so grateful. After several months, Jim contacted Space Camp Director Ed Buckby to have a scholarship application sent to me. Excuse me. I ended up getting the scholarship, and I'm certain, as it said in the video, which they took a lot of my thunder there, but appreciate the video. It's incredible, by the way. Had a strong influence on that award. So tonight, I have to say, I'm honored that Jim's daughter, Jan, Jim, and his grandson, Joshua, are here tonight supporting me with this induction. And I want to say to the 3 of you, thank you for the sacrifice you made, allowing him to be shared with us in the world. So thank you. It is for these reasons I've created separate scholarships in both of these angels' names to have a teacher and a student come to Space Camp. It is my contribution to making the Space Camp family grow. I'm here because of family. To my given family, thank you, and I love you, each and every one of you, and especially to my mother, Carolyn, and Father Otha, who both didn't get my space thing, but supported it. And I'm sure many of you suffer from the same space thing affliction. Thank you to my chosen families from Modesto, Angie, and Paul. Oceanside, my brothers and sisters who are there. Tarbut Vitora, school I taught at, Ventura County Office of Education, Purdue, and the Naval Academy. Now I am joining the Hall of Fame family. While I'm not sure I'm deserving of all this, I pledge to each and every one of you, I will give tenfold back for what you've been pouring into me this weekend. And thank you. In closing, I have 2 messages. First, to America's educators. Go to the classroom each day with the idea that the eyes of the first person to walk on Mars may be looking and listening to you, because they are. You are making a difference, and I want to say thank you. My second message is to the Hall of Fame class of 21-25. And yes, I believe we will be celebrating Space Camp 100 years from now. The location, however, will be the Huntsville colony at the Sea of Tranquility. So, class of 21-25, I say, watch Hail Columbia, the dream is alive, and increase the growing numbers of people who fall in love with this place. I want to say thank you to you all. This means so much to me, and I'm still floored by it all. So thank you to everyone.
Now please welcome Tim Bailey, President of the Space Camp Hall of Fame.
Hello, everyone. Was that an incredible presentation of our inductees? Every year, I think we've gotten the best people in the Hall of Fame, and then we do this. It keeps getting better and better, and I'm honored to be the figurehead for the Hall of Fame. I won't say I'm the leader because we have so many amazing leaders in the Hall of Fame, but I'm privileged to be able to speak for them and on their behalf. The Hall of Fame is, as the new inductees will find out, much like a family, but more like a crew. We're a group of people that's been brought together by a mission, and that mission is to push forward the ideals of Space Camp, the ones that von Braun wanted Space Camp to embody when he put this idea together. And I'm so pleased to see that after all these years and all these inductees, we're continuing to do that. And I think the inductees that we brought in today really do embody those ideals and really help push forward the idea of Space Camp out into the world where it can grow tenfold, where it can grow 100-fold, and where it creates the space community that we want to see tomorrow. So thank you to the inductees, and thank you to all of the staff that's made this event possible tonight, from our photographers and our audiovisual team down to the folks at the Education Foundation. Give them a round of applause. I also want to thank all of you that are out in the audience right now. I know a lot of the inductees talked about it, but when I was inducted here, one of the most incredible things to me was to see the people in my life that came and turned up to support me. So I know a lot of you had to travel a long distance, or you had to do things in your life to make being here possible, but I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. It really makes a difference to the people that were on this stage to have you there for them and to know that you support them and to show up for this important event in their life. So thank you. I really appreciate all of you being here tonight. One of the things that you may have noticed about our Hall of Fame inductees is that they're not a static point of accomplishment. As Hall of Fame members, they've accomplished a lot over their wide careers, some of them doing incredible things over and over and over again, and that doesn't stop once they become inductees. And I'm proud to give you a little preview of some of the things that have happened for some of our inductees over the last year. Now, we're a very humble group. Just ask Burke, he'll tell you how humble he is. If you don't get that joke this year, you will next year. But the group has been doing amazing things, and I feel it's important that you know that the Hall of Fame members that you see on the walls around you and that have come up here on stage are continuing to do amazing things out in the world, and that all of the new inductees we know are going to do the same thing. Just some highlights from the last year. We had Cindy Mailer, who was up here just recently, won an Outstanding Achievement Award from Purdue for aerospace for founding their Purdue Space Day. We had Burke Fort, Burke Hare, where are you? I called you Burke Fort by accident. He's not going to let me live that down. This is Chris Zimbrowski, in case you're wondering, making that mistake. He set up the first satellite command and control center in the southeastern United States, on budget and on time. That's the kind of Hall of Fame folks we have. We also had somebody do a spacewalk this year. Anybody want to guess who that was? Jared Isaacman did the first commercial spacewalk last year. incredible to have one of our alumni and one of our Hall of Fame members still pushing the frontiers of spaceflight itself. So thank you, Jared, for continuing on that tradition. We had Dr. Michelle Christensen, who has been a flight director for Blue Origin, sending more people into space over the last year than what we've done over decades previously. So we appreciate her efforts to pull that team together and to make sure that spaceflight is alive and thriving in the United States. Thank you, Michelle. Dr. Tara Sweeney recently got her PhD and was nominated as one of 2 people that are going to be leading the geology experiments that are being done on the moon. She's now part of the Artemis mission and will be pushing forward space camp ideals all the way onto the lunar surface. So congratulations, Tara. We're so proud of you. George Whitesides, who's not here today, but also in the Hall of Fame, was also elected to Congress. He's now representing California in the House of Representatives. So we're making a difference both on the national stage and the global stage here in the Hall of Fame. I know, 2 people in Congress. That's a pretty powerful group. And I personally passed 10,000 parabolas. I do parabolic flight for a living, and I was able to pass 10,000 parabolas, and I'm very proud of that. Thank you. One thing I love about coming here, and why I wanted you to recognize some of the other accomplishments that are ongoing in the Hall of Fame, is that every year when I come to this event, I get a renewed sense of purpose and renewed hope for the future. Regardless of what I see on the news, I know these people are out there making a difference every day. And I know these people are going to make the future better. And I want you to leave here with that as well. And I want you to know that you can always come back to Space Camp. You can always come back to this family, and you will always find that here. Hope for the future and people actively making a difference in what they do. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for joining us for the Hall of Fame induction. Thank you, everybody. We appreciate you coming so much.